Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And 9 years into this playthrough, we've had pretty good success at this point. 8 consecutive playoff appearances, although admittedly those first 4 playoff appearances, we felt like we were doing it with smoke and mirrors, never were really a true big-time contender in my mind. But the last 4 years, we have consistently been one of the best teams in baseball, averaging well over 100 wins a year while winning 4 consecutive division titles. And more importantly than that, the World Series a couple years ago in 20 and 31, and the World Series a couple of days ago here in 2033. Went through our annual roster review in the last episode. This time around, we're going to start off by checking out some of the top prospects in all of baseball, and then getting a little closer to home and checking out some of the top prospects in our organization. And we like to check in on a lot of players that don't end up on our team via either the draft or international amateur free agency, because we do get a lot of very helpful and interesting feedback from our viewers, also known as the Worldwide Scouting Department, particularly regarding those 2 ways to bring young players into the organization. And although obviously when I get, as I do sometimes, a couple dozen viewers pointing me in 6 or 7 different directions as to what to do with the draft pick or what to do with a IAFA signing pool. Can only pick one player at a time in the draft, and you have to make some difficult decisions when it comes to the IAFA pool. But tracking some of the more interesting prospects allows us to see who goes on to have perhaps a better career than the player that I picked, and also gives some members of the Worldwide Scouting Department an opportunity to tell me I told you so when the guy that I picked in the first round never makes it above high A ball, and the player that they wanted me to pick becomes a Hall of Famer. We'll take a look first at some of the pitchers that we've thought about picking over the years, or in a couple of cases, the 2-way players we've thought about. This will probably be the last time we check in on Cruz Schoolcraft, who went 30th overall in the first draft we looked at in 2025. The 26-year-old briefly played in the majors with Baltimore in 2031 and 2032. This past year spent the entire year in AA and AAA, where he was a combined 6 and 4 on the mound. As far as his batting statistics, he was 1 for 4 in AAA, although I guess that was a year ago. This year in AA, he hit .278 in 97 at-bats. Did have 10 home runs in 27 ribbies, so the power definitely remains there. Put up a 142 WRC+. But at 26 years old, looking at his hitting ratings and his pitching ratings, he is a very marginal player for a decent roster at the major league level, and we see that by the limited amount of action Mr. Schoolcraft has gotten in the big leagues. Miguel Perales, a player who was a very interesting pitching prospect a couple of years ago. Split this year between 2 levels of rookie ball in the St. Louis organization, as well as A ball, 1 and 2 with a 6.17 ERA after he was promoted above A ball. Only 20 years old, but looking at his profile, looks like the best case scenario for him is maybe a 5th starter or a long reliever, so not a particularly big prospect at this point. Can say the same thing about the closer Mario Garza, IAFA signing from way back in 2028. Spent the entire year in high A ball, where he was 0-4 with a 3.54 ERA. Still like the fact that we think he can reach 100 miles on the gun. Still like the personality. Still like the extreme ground ball tendencies. The issue with him is that although his stuff is decent, his movement is going to be average at best, and he's always going to struggle to get the ball over the plate. 25 control at the age of 22, fragile physically, and he walked 17 batters in just 20 and a third innings this past season. Oscar Perez, 24-year-old relief pitcher, soon to be 25. Split the year between AA, AAA, and the majors with San Francisco. Went 4-2 with a save in 46 appearances. Put up a 3.48 ERA and 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. The personality, not great. And he did just have elbow ligament reconstruction surgery that's likely to cost him all of next year. So he'll probably be 26 years old before he pitches in the majors again. Fragile physically, has that outstanding fastball to go with a nice cutter and a decent sinker. The movement and control, a little bit of an issue. But think Perez could certainly be a useful reliever down the line. 21-year-old Victor Esquivel spent this year in rookie ball and A ball. 3.26 ERA in 10 appearances in rookie ball. Ugly 16.20 ERA in 3 1/3 innings in A. Looks again like a best case situation for him is perhaps a 5th starter if he reaches his full potential. There are a few pitchers we've followed over the years who have turned into useful major leaguers and or still look like they could potentially become not just useful major leaguers, but maybe even stars. C.J. Sampson is a two-way player. Went 6-10 with a 4.79 ERA on the mound this past year for the Giants. Hitting-wise was brutal. Hit .063 in 63 at-bats with a minus 45 WRC plus. I don't think I've ever seen a player with that kind of number, particularly someone who actually played in 50 games over the course of a season, even though he didn't have a ton of at-bats. So Sampson looks like a useful major league pitcher. Not much of a hitter, however, and can play a number of positions in the field, so there's some value there for the former 16th overall pick in 2026. The last 3 guys we're going to talk about are still more at the prospect stages of their career. Matt Stream, 20-year-old, who was a supplemental pick, 41st overall in the 2031 draft, viewed as the number 71 prospect in baseball. 8-9 record with a 4.44 ERA in A-ball this year, but he did strike out 11.5 batters per 9 innings. Our scout still sees him as having a pretty decent ceiling if he reaches his full potential. Stream, the lefty, definitely looks like someone who could have an interesting major league career. Phil Davidson, second-round pick in 2032, was a guy that we were hoping was going to fall to us at the end of the second round. A very interesting reliever prospect who's also known as the Cheetah. Made his professional debut as a 19-year-old this year, 1-4 with 8 saves, an ERA of just over 4 in 17 2/3 innings. Definitely makes a lot happen. 192 whip as he allowed 22 hits and 12 walks. But he also struck out almost 14 batters per 9 innings. And another high-end player is Sergio Alvarado. He's been in the majors on multiple occasions with Pittsburgh at this point. This past season, unfortunately, he suffered a torn UCL back on April 29th. Pitched 1 game in Indianapolis in AAA before he pitched 4 starts with the Pirates. 0-2 record with a 9 ERA over 14 innings pitched. Still looks like he's someone who could be a pretty interesting pitcher if he reaches his full potential. But he's already fragile physically, and he is likely to miss the first couple months of next season. We've got a slightly longer list of position players to check in on, starting with shortstop Carlos Restrepo. Minor league free agent signing back in 2033. So this is a 23-year-old who's been through multiple organizations at this point. Reindeer Bill is his nickname. This past year in AA, hit 247 and 217 in two different organizations. Does not look like Reindeer Bill is ultimately going to have a good enough bat to justify his pretty average glove, fragile physically, not a big-time prospect at this point. Troy Dufer, 23-year-old, was the 36th overall pick just 3 years ago. Was an interesting defensive prospect with good contact and durability, but unfortunately that's about all he has, and his power and his eye look brutal. Split this year between rookie ball and A ball, hit 451 in 153 rookie ball at-bats, and then 352 when he jumped to A ball for 67 games. Combined for almost a 5 WAR between those two levels, but looking at his profile and the fact that he's already closing in on 24 years old, and don't think he's going to have a particularly long or productive major league career. Another 23-year-old, the outfielder John Rowdy Richard Bentley, was picked 36th overall with a supplemental pick in 2029. He spent this year in regular A, high A, double A, and triple A. Most of his action was in high A ball, where he hit 275, did bat 206 in 63 at-bats in triple A with the Astros organization. Looks like he could be a usable major league bat and a usable major league glove, but not a particularly impactful major leaguer at this point. Right fielder Ryan Westcott, 24 years old, split the year between AAA, where he hit 338 in 269 at-bats, and the majors, where he hit 292 in 89 at-bats for the Cardinals organization. Westcott certainly looks like a useful-ish major league bat, albeit with not a ton of power. A competent corner outfield or first base glove. Don't know that he's ever going to be an all-star, but does look like a guy who probably will have a job for 5 to 10 years as a major leaguer when all is said and done. First baseman Bob Smith, picked 28th overall in last year's draft, 2032. Looks like if he reaches his full potential, it's a useful major league bat, but certainly we're expecting more potentially of him the first time we looked at him back in 2029 when he was a high school player who ended up being unsigned and then going to college. 6 home runs in 153 at-bats in rookie ball this year, but then he hit just a .61 in 31 at-bats in A ball. Given his defensive limitations, his lack of speed, and a bat that looks acceptable only for a major leaguer, hard to imagine that Bob Smith is going to have a particularly productive major league career. I already talked about the two-way player C.J. Sampson. Right fielder Jonathan Pera, left-handed hitter, very good defensively, good speed, decent contact, and good gap power. Hit 313 in 412 at-bats in AAA for the Reds. 254 average and 67 major league at-bats. He's been in the majors for parts of the last couple seasons, but not a big-time prospect at this point. You may remember that one year he was not protected in the Rule 5 draft. We actually picked him up, and we sent him back to the Reds organization when he did not make our roster coming out of spring training. He'll be 25 years old soon. Looks like someone who could spend a few more years in the majors, but probably not a big-time player. Right fielder Ricardo Navarro, an international free agent signing from closing in on 3 years ago in early 2031. Spent the entire year on rookie ball, where he hit 288 with a 122 WRC+. Looks like a competent corner outfielder defensively, with a little bit of pop in his bat as a switch hitter. Could be a useful major leaguer, but unlikely that Navarro becomes a superstar. This guy, you may remember him by his nickname, The Dude, and we certainly felt and thought that his potential was much higher when we were scouting him years ago. And now we're start getting into some of the players with higher ceilings, although to some degree that's just because they're younger and they haven't potentially disappointed us yet. Jose Ibarra, the number 40 prospect in baseball, center fielder, spent time in A, high A, and double A this year. Most of it in high A ball, where he hit .307 with 32 doubles and 17 homers and 306 at-bats. Ibarra certainly looks like he could be a productive major league hitter who can play a competent corner outfield and not completely embarrass himself in center field. Omar Gallo, the number 100 prospect in baseball, an IAFA signing from 2030. Still looks like he could have an interesting bat, although he's still got a lot of work to reach his true potential. Decent speed, good personality, nice arm in the outfield. Hit just .230 this past year in A-ball, but he did have 44 extra base hits, including 14 homers, and he also stole 14 bases for the Fort Myers Mighty Muscles. Matt Arnold, shortstop who was picked in the second round this past year out of UC San Diego. We were hoping he might fall to us with our second round pick. Really liked his glove, although we had concerns about his bat. The concerns about his bat certainly seem warranted based on his debut in A-ball this year. Hit .238 in 101 at-bats, struck out 32 times, ended up with a 48 WRC plus, although he was still slightly above replacement level thanks to his outstanding defensive traits. Definitely too early to completely write him off as a prospect, but certainly want to start seeing some improvement in his current ratings and not just his potential over the next couple of years. Catcher Franklin Rivera, 17-year-old, is viewed as the number 6 prospect in all of baseball. He was an IAFA signing this past year. We punted on him, didn't love his average defensive skills and the fact that he's going to strike out an insane amount of times and struggle to make contact. That being said, he was extremely productive in rookie ball this year. Hit .318 as a 16-year-old in 179 at-bats, 6 home runs and a ridiculous 51 ribbies. He walked 61 times and struck out 70 times in 46 games. So he still has the look of someone who could definitely be a 3 true outcome type of player. We'll certainly be following him closely over the years. Center fielder David Mireles, an IAFA signing from 2031, is the number 94 prospect in baseball. Spent the entire year in A-ball, where he hit .380 in 208 at-bats. Rookie ball. Hit .380 in 208 at-bats as a 19-year-old. He actually handled A-ball reasonably well at the end of the 2032 season, so a little bit surprising that the Giants organization didn't have him spend some time in A-ball this year. Definitely looks like he could be a very interesting contact hitter, knocking extra base hits all around. Did have 22 doubles, 9 triples, and 10 homers this season. With a solid glove and decent speed. And the prize of this group is Jose Estran, shortstop who was an IAFA signing back in 2038, who has become one of the premier players in all of baseball. He was the MVP of the American League a year ago, been an all-star each of the last 2 seasons, and won a Silver Slugger last year. Followed up his MVP season from last year with a .315 average, scored a league best 114 runs with a league best 42 doubles and a league best 90 walks. Also 36 homers, 111 ribbies, an OPS of over 1,000, and a WAR of 9. Certainly would expect Nims Estran to receive some more attention for a second MVP award here in 2033. But as interesting as it is to look at what might have been and some of the prospects from organizations other than ours, we care most about the players that are in this Rockies organization. And as we get ready to begin this 2033 to 2034 offseason, we've got the 5th-ranked minor league system in all of baseball. 5 top 100 prospects led by the starting pitcher, Dan Patterson. Picked him in the 2nd round a couple years ago in 2031. He was 1-0 with a 5.70 ERA in rookie ball. Given that he is 20, we promoted him to A ball, where he went 2-4 with an ERA of just over 5. Was above replacement level in both organizations, with solid FIP minuses and Sierras that were much better than his ERAs. Looking at his profile, the control is the potential concern. Walked 26 batters in 47 innings this year. If he's able to kind of harness his control, still has a profile that indicates he could be a pretty useful major league pitcher. Has a good personality with that high work ethic, loyalty, and leadership. A lot of stamina. Don't necessarily see him being a front end of the rotation type starter, but if he reaches his full potential, he could be an outstanding 3-starter for us. Question is whether he will really reach that potential, but can say that about any of these guys. Left fielder Phil Dingwell, who we picked with a supplemental pick in the 1st round back in 2030, is the number 34 prospect in baseball. Spent the whole year in high A ball as a 21-year-old. Hit 283, 23 doubles, and 15 home runs. Also was 7 for 7 stealing bases. Put up a 113 WRC plus and a 2.6 WAR. His age, closing in on 22, still has extreme development risk. Think he could be a pretty solid defensive outfielder. We're going to have him in the development lab this upcoming offseason, and hope that a nice performance in the development lab may mean that that extreme development risk gets a bit mitigated. Jeff Colson, 19-year-old, who was our 1st-round pick in 2032, high school pitcher, now listed as the number 42 prospect in baseball. Made his professional debut this year, going 1-3 in 10 starts with a 4.93 ERA. Still has a lot of work to do on his control, as he walked 23 batters in 42 innings. But he did strike out 64 and allow just 2 homers, put up a 1.5 WAR. Definitely still optimistic that the guy who does have a potential 6-pitch arsenal could be a pretty interesting pitcher for us down the line. Another starting pitching prospect, and 4 of our top 5 prospects are pitching prospects, is Kikaku Kawakami, 20-year-old who was a scouting discovery just about 4 years ago at this point, the number 44 prospect in baseball. 3-0 in the DSL with a 3.58 ERA, went 2-4 with a 4.28 ERA for our Arizona team. Likely, given that he'll be turning 21 just tomorrow, that he will be in A ball for us next year. Still like his ceiling, but he has not done much thus far to raise his floor, unfortunately, but he is still viewed as a top 50 prospect. Another starting pitcher, our final top 100 prospect, Kevin Canty, 24-year-old, was a 20th round pick back in 2027. We've gotten real fortunate with his development. Kind of a lost year for him. Started just 16 games, 4-3 with a 3.81 ERA for Double-A Hartford in the Eastern League, but 0-2 with an ERA of about 5.5 in Triple-A. Had some injury issues that curtailed his season. He's now fragile physically. The control with him is likely to be a limiting factor on his career, but the fastball and change are both very good. Also has an above-average knuckle curve. Would think that Canty could be a guy fighting for a spot as a reliever for us in the not too distant future, and perhaps a fourth or fifth starter down the line. Not a bad return for a guy who, as I said, was a 20th round pick 6 years ago. And we've got 5 other players ranked between number 101 and number 200 in the rankings. Infielder Hendrik Jan van Gorkum, IAFA signing from 2031. Had some injury issues this year. Hit just a $146 in 48 at-bats in the DSL. He was more productive in the Arizona League, which is kind of the opposite from what you'd expect, hitting 252 in 131 at-bats. But he was ultimately a well below average offensive player at both levels, was below replacement level. Like the potential versatility of his glove, but definitely beginning to question whether his bat is going to justify being a major leaguer. He has that extreme development risk, and given that we don't see his ceiling as being anything particularly special, it's very conceivable that Hendrik Jan van Gorkum will end up being a disappointing IAFA signing for us. Speaking of disappointments, we drafted Dervi Mahez out of UCLA in 2030, so 3.5 years ago at this point. He's going to be 25 in several weeks, and he's played just 8 games in the majors at this point, hitting a $133 for us. Had only 218 at-bats over 56 games in AAA Albuquerque for us this year, where he hit 271. Had some significant injury issues this year on the IL multiple times. He's in the draft league, the Arizona Fall League, although they call it the DL here, Developmental League, hitting 284 and 74 at-bats for the Salt River Rafters. He likely, with some anticipated departures in our infield, will be in the majors and will be a starter for us next year. We've got him working on his generating bat speed to hopefully hit more home runs in the development lab. Love the personality, really like the glove, really like the speed. Question is whether the bat is an average major league bat or slightly below. I think that Mahez could have a long major league career ahead of him, but the bat will ultimately determine whether he's kind of a guy or if the bat is an average major league bat with those other skills that he brings to the table. He could be a pretty interesting player. Center fielder Ruben Narvaez was our primary focus of the IAFA pool this year. Rowdy Narvaez still at our international complex. Still think he has very interesting potential, albeit with extreme development risk, which we've seen from a number of our top prospects. Jose Ramirez, IAFA signing from 2029, split the year between A and high A, 5-2 with a 4.25 ERA for us in Fresno, and then we promoted him to Spokane, where he was 7-0 with a 1.49 ERA. Don't think that Ramirez is likely to be a number 1 starter, but if he's able to ultimately develop that changeup, think that he could certainly be a pretty useful middle-of-the-rotation type of pitcher for us. Don't love the low baseball IQ, and again, developing a third pitch to go with the fastball and the knuckle curve is going to be important. But he's only 21 years old, so there is still time for the walking man to become close to what we hoped he might be when we signed him. Last of the top 200 prospects on our team, starting pitcher Jesse Hoffmeister, second-round pick from a year ago in 2032. He was 1-2 with a 3.89 ERA in rookie ball this year. The good news is the 47 strikeouts in 37 innings pitched. The bad news, the 42 hits, including 7 home runs and the 28 walks. Kind of a weird stat line. ERA of below 4, despite his whip being almost 2. And we'll finish up taking a look at a few other prospects who are getting close to the major leagues. We already talked about Bernie Barrera in the last episode. He is basically in the majors, spent September with us, and should be fighting for a spot as our fifth starter this upcoming season. The scouting discovery from 2028 has worked out very well. Manuel Torres, 22-year-old, who was a 10th round pick in 2029. Decent prospect, hit .333 in high A for us this year. Batting average dropped to .266 in double A, but he did combine for 32 home runs and 115 ribbies between the two levels. He is in the Arizona Fall League right now with the Salt River Rafters, hitting just a .161 in 56 at-bats. Still think that Torres could have a interesting major league bat. Love the captain personality, love some of the personality traits that he brings. Unfortunately, he's not a particularly gifted defensive infielder, and I don't know if he's quite going to have a bat that makes us feel real good about him at first base, but still has potential for above average contact and slightly above average power, so we're certainly not going to give up on Torres quite yet. The highest other prospect in our organization is the right fielder Josh McNeil, 6th round pick from 2030, split the year between A and high A, hit over 300 at both levels, combined for 27 homers and over 30 ribbies, over 30 doubles, over 100 ribbies on 20 stolen bases between the two levels. Looks like he could be a useful-ish corner outfielder. It is hard given his very mediocre defensive ratings and a bat that certainly looks like it's trending towards mediocre at the major league level to think that the switch hitter is going to be anything more than a 4th or 5th outfielder for his major league career. And we've simmed ahead a day since we were checking in on player development and some of our top prospects and some of the other top prospects. And we've been shopping people aggressively. Unfortunately, a lot of the guys that we'd like to get rid of have little or no value, so we've had to waive and DFA a few players. And we've also made 3 trades, gotten a lot of input that was very helpful from the worldwide scouting department since the last episode. Some guys where there are various opinions on, so we're not going to make everybody happy with what we did, but think that ultimately we are making this team marginally better than it was before, saving a little bit of money as well. The most significant trade that we did was a deal that I'm going to talk about now, if I can actually find the write-up on the deal. There we go. This was a significant 5-for-1 trade, which I know some of you don't like because of the 5-for-1 part, and some of you probably aren't going to like this one because of the 5 players we gave up for the one that we got in return. It's kind of an interesting one here. I mentioned at the end of the last episode that with the potential departures of the likes of Roman Anthony, Marcelo Mayer, and Colt Keith, who are all left-handed hitters, and switch-hitting catcher Drew Romo, that I wouldn't hate adding a left-handed bat. And that is what we did. We brought on the 26-year-old center fielder, Anthony Pack Jr., left-handed hitting center fielder, good defensively, excellent on the base paths, good in the clubhouse. He's been an above-average offensive player the last couple seasons, his first 2 full years in the majors. Not an incredible player by any stretch of the imagination, but he has put up 3.5 to 4 WARs. His value is largely, I think, through the speed and the defensive ability. When you look at his batting ratings here, they are relatively pedestrian. I'd be surprised to see another 114 WRC plus season out of him. But he's a guy who is going to be making the major league minimum this next season. He's only got 2 years and 12 days of service. And envision him potentially being our center fielder for hopefully the next 4 seasons, making the minimum and then 3 arbitration years. I don't think he's someone we're going to build around. He's going to be 27 by the time next season begins, so he'll be 30 by the time he's eligible for free agency. But one of the guys that we included in the trade for Anthony Pack Jr. was our previous center fielder, Dean West. And when we compare these two guys, very similar. West also very good offensively, although Pack slightly better range. West also very good on the base paths. But West is a couple years older, fragile physically, and although we don't think Pack Jr. is an incredible hitter, Dean West has definitely proven that he is a below-average major league hitter over the course of all of the time he's had in the majors with us at this point, which is parts of 5 different seasons. He's put up a 71 WRC plus. So essentially, as I think about this, we get younger at center field, we get a little healthier at center field, we get a little better offensively at center field. You can argue that the defense and the speed are slightly better with Pack over West as well, but to me the real difference is that we hope that Pack Jr. can be a league average type offensive player, where Dean West has kind of proven that he is a below average offensive player. So Pack for West is obviously a slam dunk trade for us. The issue, of course, is that we had to include 4 other players to get the deal done. And it's kind of interesting because these are all major league quality players, or players that we think are going to be major league quality. 3 guys are proven major leaguers, including West. I think at a minimum 4 of the 5 guys that we traded will be useful major leaguers, and it's very conceivable that all 5 will be. When I think about the trade holistically, I kind of think that Pack Jr. maybe is like the 15th or 16th best player on our roster, and we are giving up guys who would be the 19th, the 24th, the 24th, and the 26th player on our roster for him. So as a win now team, I think it's a nice step in the right direction. The question is the improvement that we got by bringing on Pack Jr. versus Dean West. Do you actually think that's justified by the value of the 4 players we had to give up? We did include Matt McElroy, the 28-year-old, who's been a pretty productive player for us the last couple years. He put up a 126 WRC plus in 215 at-bats last year. The right-handed hitting infielder was our platoon first baseman the last couple seasons, playing against left-handed pitching. And he's a pretty productive hitter with excellent home run power against left-handed pitching. And he has certainly proven that over the course of his career. 107 career WRC plus, and versus lefties even better at 111, and he's been well above league average these last couple of years. But McElroy is finally eligible for arbitration. He's set to make almost $2.5 million next year, and my thought was a platoon first baseman batting a couple hundred times a year, making the major league minimum when he doesn't really bring anything else special to the table in terms of his defense, is fine. Spending 3 times more on him when he's arbitration eligible is a bit more of a struggle for me. So freed up a little bit of money for us, but McElroy is still definitely a useful major league player. Speaking of useful major league players, we also included Bill Douglas. As we talked about last episode, Douglas at this point at 27 years old does still have 2 option years left. In a perfect world, we would not want him on the 26-man roster, but he has put up a 106 ERA plus and a 97 FIP minus over the course of his major league career, which is admittedly only 100 innings over the past 3 seasons. But although he had a rough year for us this year, his overall major league experience has been as a solid, respectable major league reliever, and we think he can continue to be that. But given that in a perfect world where people are healthy, I think Douglas is in AAA for us. We weren't going to not include him and hold up the deal. We also included Ian Miller. This is a guy who really had some bad luck in his career with us. Fragile physically, 27 years old. Certainly looks like if he's healthy, he can be a more than competent 5th starter. And he is a guy that still has option years left. But similar to Douglas, given the depth of our pitching staff at this point, I think Miller, unless we had a bunch of injuries, was most likely going to be in AAA for us next year. He did really well in his 2 appearances in the majors back in 2031. Didn't allow a hit over 5 innings pitched. Unfortunately, he then suffered an injury that kept him out all of the 2032 season. And last year, our pitching staff was so deep that even when he came back and was healthy, he was in AAA, where he did put up an impressive 3.62 ERA and 1.5 WAR in the PCL. So certainly a guy that can help the back end of a rotation, just like I think that Douglas can help the back end of a bullpen, and McElroy has some value as a platoon player. And the last guy we included is the youngest in the deal and the most unproven. Jordan Contreras, who you may remember, is a guy that we spent $5.7 million on. Every penny that we had as an international amateur free agent back in 2028. He was a top 50 prospect in baseball for his first few years of development, but unfortunately the development has slowed. He's now 23 years old, split last year between AA Hartford and AAA Albuquerque, hit in the high 200s in both levels. Looks like he could be an incredible base runner. He was 49 out of 50 stealing bases in AAA. Competent corner outfielder. I do question at 23 years old how much his bat is really going to improve at this point. We think he can add a lot to the gap power. Never going to hit a lot of home runs. Given the other outfielders we have at the major league level and in our organization, we weren't going to let Contreras hold up the trade. If I think about the gains we have from West to Pack Jr. at center field, I feel like our team is definitely better for next year. Having Pack Jr. as our center fielder, which also limits, hopefully, wear and tear on the franchise, Mr. Roberts Jr. But I can definitely get the point that giving up a proven, productive platoon infielder / corner outfielder, proven reliever, and a guy that we think can be a respectable back of the rotation starter, in addition to a prospect that still looks he could be useful, maybe a lot to pay for the incremental gain that we got from Pack Jr. But obviously it was something that I decided to do. The fans were not happy that we moved on from McElroy. You may also remember that we had a $12 million team option for Drew Romo for next year. We were leaning towards declining that option because the young catcher Mike Girard is basically, at this point, as good as Drew Romo, although we think that Romo at his peak was a better offensive player. We tried shopping Drew Romo like crazy. We just couldn't get a big-time prospect or a big-time player in return for him. We did end up trading him away. It said fan interest decreased a lot, and fan interest decreased slightly from the trades of McElroy and Romo. Fortunately, with the way the metric works, we're still at 92. So I think we've got a nice recent bonus due to having just won the World Series. But ultimately, we traded Romo to the team that we just beat in the World Series, the Chicago White Sox, and they had a pretty average defensive catcher when I looked at it. So for a team that was in the World Series this past year to add a great defensive catcher like Romo, totally get why they would be interested. We have a decent-looking, albeit not great, prospect that we got, Eric Schweitzer, who was a guy who was a scouting find of the White Sox organization earlier this year. 17-year-old, looks like he could have above average stuff and movement and average control. A lot of work to get to those levels as a 17-year-old. Think he could eventually throw in the mid-90s, but not a ton of stamina. He is going to be a pure reliever if he develops at anything. I don't love that the White Sox discovered him this year and immediately put him into the DSL at 17 years old. He held his own there, going 1-2 with 4 saves and a 3.38 ERA over 13 1/3 innings pitched, although he did walk 12 batters. But they've got the clock ticking on his minor league service time at a very young age, so that means that when he is likely not anywhere close to ready for the major leagues, we still may need to be putting him on the 40-man roster. So beggars can't be choosers. We wanted to get something for Romo, given that we were going to decline the option anyways, and after spending a ton of time exploring some opportunities, Schweitzer was the best thing that we could find. We also made one other deal here. We picked up 26-year-old shortstop Gary Mackey and a little bit of cash from the Astros. Mackey, 26 years old, not really a major league hitter, but he is a competent defensive shortstop, and he's a guy who still has 2 option years left. So I think the thought is that hopefully in spring training we can get him trained up at one other position to potentially be a utility infielder for us. And if he ends up not making the roster out of spring training, we can, in AAA this upcoming year, get him so he could be a very competent and versatile defensive infielder for us as a 5th or 6th infielder going forward. He did put up a 96 WRC plus in 61 at-bats with the Astros this year when he made his major league debut. But he hit just 230, on-base percentage below 300, lucked into 2 home runs in those 61 at-bats. Don't really see Mackey being a big-time offensive player. Would love it if we felt good about him as a starter in a couple of years in the infield. But I'm really kind of envisioning him as a utility infielder, cheap utility infielder for us for the next few years, who gives us a little more defensive versatility, given that we could be losing multiple infielders this offseason. And also our starting shortstop, Ezekiel Tovar, and potential starting second baseman or third baseman, Derby Mahez, the young prospect, are both fragile physically. So bringing on a competent defensive player who's normal in terms of his injury proneness, although we're viewing him as a utility infielder down the line, could be a guy with some injury-prone players who may need to be starting for us for a few weeks at a time from time to time. To pick him up, we traded a decent pitching prospect, 22-year-old minor league right-hander Carlos Fuentes. Those of you who have followed me over the years will probably be able to look at this profile and figure out why I was more than willing to trade him. At 22 years old, the control is only at 25. Definitely have some concerns about him ultimately walking few enough batters to be a competent major league pitcher. He's also got a lot of work to do to ultimately develop a major league arsenal. Split this year between A ball and high A, and he was pretty bad at both levels. Don't think this trade is a huge difference maker one way or the other. But since we're a win now team, felt like having another competent defensive infielder in the organization in Gary Mackey made sense to give up on the young prospect Fuentes and let the Astros deal with him, hopefully being able to get better control of his pitches. So we've also waived and DFA'd several players. Chase Dollander, Jack Bauer, former second-round draft pick, didn't want to be guaranteeing him a major league contract next year. Justin Payne, former sixth-round draft pick, and we are kind of stripping away some of our formerly prized IAFA players. Francisco Santos, who was our first key IAFA signing in this playthrough back in 2026, spent $4.75 million on him, which was the max we had then. Was competent this year in Double-A, but he's 24 years old. Looks like a competent defensive outfielder, decent speed. Don't know that he's ever really going to be a major league hitter at this point, unfortunately, given his age. So we didn't want to be guaranteeing Pinky Santos a major league contract next year, so we DFA'd those three guys. That has put us in a position financially where we're getting into a better spot since we traded away Romo rather than exercising that $12 million option. And then we also got rid of both West and McElroy, who were set to be making about $3 million and $2.5 million respectively. So between those moves, waiving and DFAing a couple guys, we're still trending to be below where we were last year on scouting and player development at this point, although we've got a little bit of money to play with. In the wake of those trades, take a look at salary arbitration, and we have made offers to everyone but one person who's eligible at this point. Isaiah Shader, there's just really no interesting trade options for him. We can basically take on a guy in his 30s making $20+ million a year with a horrible contract, or get nothing for him. So we have decided we're not going to make an offer to Shader. We are going to make an offer to return Dylan Jordan, probably his final year with us. He'll likely be our third starter. Going to bring back Jackson Peavy and Trent Clausen. The worldwide scouting department had mixed reactions on both of those, but we've made offers to those two players, and then arbitration offers to Justin Gibson and Adonis Valer as well. We've also made an offer to Luke Little, been a good reliever for us for the past few seasons, and he was asking for $5.5 million a year for 2 years. We actually offered him a 2-year contract, albeit with a team option for the second season, $4 million for next year and $4.5 million for the year after that. So think that that would be a very nice number for us to bring back a guy who had a sub-2 ERA and is very effective against lefties. We're not going to be making offers to Roman Anthony or Joely Garcia, who are both looking for huge money. The big question I have left for me as we start moving through this offseason is what to do with Marcelo Mayer. I'd love him back next year. He's been a good, solid second baseman for us for the past several seasons. But he's looking for almost $19 million a year for the next 6 seasons. And I just don't think that's a number that makes sense given our relatively fragile salary situation and the fact that he's going to be 31 years old soon and is fragile physically. I worry that in the game he might accept that $20.325 million qualifying offer. What I really want to do is submit the QO to him, have him reject it since he's looking for 6 years, and get a compensatory pick in return when he moves on. Given that he has high financial ambition, and this is likely to be the one chance in his career to get a 9-figure contract, I tend to think in real life, and this is something that NS1 CLRK noted, and I agree with, in real life, a player like Mayer in this situation would be extremely unlikely to accept a 1-year QO that's worth only slightly more than the number he's looking for 6 years with some player optionality added in. I do think there's a chance that, though, in the game, Mayer will accept the offer, but I'm willing to take that chance. It's certainly not guaranteed that he's going to accept the QO, and my thought is that even if he opts in, it's probably not a contract that we can't trade. I'll be totally clear. My hope is that he rejects the qualifying offer and we just get the draft pick compensation. But 1 year at a little over $20 million for Mayer, I don't think is going to be a deal that's incredibly painful for us to get off the books if he does opt in. And it also gives us the optionality to potentially go a different direction with this team in a few weeks when free agency begins, and maybe the trade market heats up. I tend to think even if he opts in, we'd look to trade him away to kind of get our finances back in order. But there's other guys we could look to trade away, and who knows, maybe Mayer ends up with us next year. But I don't want to, have any revisionist history about this, so I will be very clear. My hope is that he does not opt into the contract. I think there's a chance that he does. But if he does, I think we can probably get out of it without feeling too much pain, even at the trade settings that we're playing on. And the last thing to touch upon, the final open question before we start moving through the next few weeks towards free agency and through award season, is what to do with our option decision on Colt Keith for $10 million. He's been a slightly above average offensive player for us the last couple seasons, averaged about 2 WAR a season for us. Competent defensive third baseman who can also play first and second in a pinch if we were desperate. $10 million isn't a crazy number for him, but it's also not an obvious bargain. The feedback from the Worldwide Scouting Department on Keith came in both directions. Viewers whose opinions I respect said we absolutely need to bring him back. Viewers whose opinions I respect said it was probably time to move on. With the fact that, as I talked about earlier, both Dervi Mahez and Ezekiel Tovar, who are important infielders for us next year, are fragile physically. And we will be moving on and already have moved on from the left-handed hitting Mr. West. We're going to be moving on from the left-handed hitting Roman Anthony. We're intending to move on from the left-handed hitting Marcelo Mayer. And we're also have already traded away the switch-hitting Drew Romo, keeping another left-handed bat, particularly given the proclivity towards injuries of some of our other infielders, makes sense to me. It's the final year of his contract, so it's not a long-term commitment, but we are going to go ahead and execute the option to bring Mr. Keith back for the 2034 season. And if you're wondering, I did not change anything as far as the intentions for the development lab that I talked about in the last episode. Did get feedback to potentially take Kevin Roberts Jr. out and perhaps try to put some of our more injury-prone players into a strength and conditioning program. My thought ultimately was Kevin Roberts Jr., 3 years into his career, with an MVP, 2 All-Star awards, 3 playoff series MVP awards, a couple of World Series championships, potential for this coming off season to win another MVP, possibly a Silver Slugger or a Gold Glove, is on a potential Hall of Fame trajectory. And I think there's potential for Kevin Roberts Jr. when you look at his fielding, his personality, his speed, and his overall batting skills to be a not just Hall of Fame player, but potentially one of the all-time greats. So I wanted to continue to invest him in the development lab, working on his contact. So ultimately decided to go with that. I think it was Avery Shaham was one of the people who brought up potentially swapping out Roberts Jr., but I want to give him every opportunity possible to become a legend of the game, even if it's just a legend in this little fantasy universe that I'm living in right now. And with that, we're going to start moving through the off season. We'll find out what happens with the arbitration offers that we've made. Obviously, whatever happens with Mayer is going to be huge, but we'll find that out right before the free agent filing day. Wait to hear what happens with Luke Little. And as I mentioned, award season starting in about a week, and we have some very strong candidates for the most valuable player with both Kevin Roberts Jr. and Gus Nieves, and a couple of pretty strong candidates for the Cy Young Award in terms of Noah Schultz and Leo Martinez as well. So could be some additional hardware coming the Rockies' way over the next few weeks, but we've won the most important one by earning that World Series trophy. And we've started to get some of our arbitration-eligible players signed, Jackson Peavy and Dylan Jordan, Adonis Valaire. Fan interest increases slightly. I'm guessing that's probably not going to move us off of 92, although it would be great if it did. And we're also signing several of our minor league free agents as well. Yeah, still 92 fan interest, but can't complain about that given that the departures of both Romo and McElroy didn't have any impact on our fan interest either. And the signings of arbitration-eligible players continue. Trent Clausen will be back. Justin Gibson, the outstanding reliever, is signed. Fan interest supposedly increased noticeably for him, so maybe we'll get something there. One opening in our organization, and pitching coach Jason Kummerfelt is going to fill that role. He'll become our new AAA pitching coach in Albuquerque. Legendary at teaching pitching, outstanding with development, good with mechanics, neutral focus. Expect him to also have good relationships with the Isotopes players, so I think that he checks a lot of the boxes for a pitching coach in the upper levels of our organization, although at 63 years old, not necessarily expecting that he's going to be with us for the long term. I guess we'll check on fan interest, and yeah, still a 92, so it seems like we've had significant hit supposedly with Romo leaving, and then a decent increase with Gibson being there, but it seems like whatever factors are working there, we are kind of in a channel that wants us to have a 92 fan interest right now, regardless of what we're doing in the off season. And we've simmed ahead a couple days. Award season starts tomorrow with the Gold Gloves. We did get Luke Little signed, 2 years, $8.5 million total. As we mentioned, though, $4 million for next season, and then a team option for $4.5 the year after that. Given that he was making $7 million this past year, I think that should be a pretty solid value contract for us for the lefty specialist. And a relatively quiet start to award season for our team. No Gold Gloves this year, given that our defense was probably the strongest criticism you could make of our team this year. It was a very good team overall, so not saying that it was a huge issue, but definitely weren't as good defensively as previous seasons. So perhaps not shocking that we had no Gold Glovers this year. Justin Gibson did finish fifth in the voting for the National League Mariano Rivera Award. We did get 2 Silver Sluggers. One name is going to be no surprise. One name may shock some people, and one omission is very shocking to me. The name that may shock some people, Ezequiel Tovar. 5 years after winning the first Silver Slugger of his career back in 2028, the 32-year-old shortstop now with 23 homers, 78 ribbies, and a 128 WRC plus wins the second Silver Slugger of his career at shortstop. The unsurprising news, Kevin Roberts Jr., who, as we talked about, is a strong MVP candidate, actually a strong candidate to be a back-to-back MVP winner, since last year was when he won it. Led the league in runs scored, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, WRC plus, and WAR, while also hitting over 300 with over 30 homers and over 100 ribbies. So that is not surprising. But Gus Nieves, who led the National League in home runs and runs batted in for the 4th time in his 6-year career, did not receive Silver Slugger this year. They gave it to Fernando Tatis Jr. in right field. He hit .296 with 37 homers, 112 ribbies, and a 6.3 WAR. So certainly a very strong season for Tatis Jr. But when we look at what our guy Gus Nieves ultimately did this past year, league best 52 homers, league best 139 ribbies. Although he's not the overall player that Tatis Jr. is, with only a 2.8 WAR on the season, still a bit surprising that there wasn't a little bit more love for Nieves, as he was striving to win the 4th Silver Slugger of his 6-year career. And we didn't really have any strong contenders on our team this year for Rookie of the Year, but in what is becoming an annual occurrence, our manager, Toby Staveland, another National League Manager of the Year award. This marks the 4th consecutive season that Toby Staveland of the Rockies has been the National League's Manager of the Year. And we've made it to the end of awards season. We will talk about the big awards now. We thought we had good chances at both the NL Cy Young Award and the NL MVP. Over in the American League, a unanimous Cy Young Award winner, Cameron Douglas of the Tampa Bay Rays. League best 17 wins, league best 2.35 ERA, league best 0.96 WHIP, league best 0.4 homers allowed per 9 innings, and a league best among pitchers 7 WAR. Not a shocking result to see somebody with a season like that win a Cy Young Award. Former 12th round pick out of Stanford is now a Cy Young Award winner to go with his selection to the All-Star game here in 2033. In the National League, thought we had a pretty good chance with Noah Schultz, but Yoshinobu Yamamoto captures the 5th Cy Young Award of his storied career. He was 15-9 with a league best 260 strikeouts, 271 ERA, led the league in strikeouts per 9 innings, and put up a 5.7 WAR for the Dodgers. Our Noah Schultz finished second in the voting, 15-5 record, 3.36 ERA. He struck out 256 batters, led the league in strikeout to walk ratio, led the league in FIP minus, and led the league with a 6.9 WAR among pitchers. But Schultz, who has 2 Cy Young Awards, did get to win the World Series championship this year, unlike Yamamoto, whose Dodgers did not make the playoffs. Leo Martinez, who we thought was a less realistic candidate than Schultz, finished 6th in the voting after going 16-7 with a 3.24 ERA and a league best 66% of his starts being quality starts. Your American League MVP this year, similar to the American League Cy Young Award, a unanimous selection. Wyatt Langford of the Texas Rangers led the league in hits, triples, slugging percentage, OPS, WRC plus with a ridiculous 182, and WAR at 9.2, while also having a 30-30 season with 31 steals, 46 homers, and 120 ribbies. The first MVP award of the 32-year-old's storied career. In the National League, we're feeling that both Gus Nieves and Kevin Roberts Jr. on our team were strong contenders to each win the second MVP award of their careers, and it ends up being Kevin Roberts Jr., an almost unanimous selection with 28 first-place votes, is now a back-to-back MVP award winner at the age of 25 after the brilliant season he had that we talked about shortly ago. He ended up easily defeating Jeremy Coate of the Diamondbacks, who won his second straight batting title for the award. The other first-place vote getter was Gus Nieves, although he finished all the way down 8th in the voting overall. He did have that one first-place vote. So no regular season awards for Gus Nieves this year, but he did win the NLCS MVP and was also a Major League champion, so still a productive season for Nieves. Our buddy Ezekiel Tovar and our pitcher Noah Schultz also received MVP votes here in 2033. So with awards season done, we're continuing to try to pretty aggressively scout the International Amateur Pool, which came out about a month ago. Still no plans to make an offer to Isaiah Shader. Still doesn't look like there's any demand at all for him in the trade market, although it has been a few days since we checked, so I'll shop him just to see if anything has changed. I'm guessing that it has not, and it's going to be some expensive bad contracts. Yeah, the only options are Spencer Arrighetti, Yoon Ki-ju, or Wilyer Abreu, who are all signed for $20 million plus a year, or 20-ish million a year for the next few seasons, and are not particularly big-time players at this point. So Shader at the close to $5 million he's expected to be making next year is no longer viewed as a particularly attractive asset. So I think that we're going to just continue to not make an offer to him. And ultimately, the big question now is whether Mayer will opt into that qualifying offer that we're giving him or not. And we've made it through arbitration hearings where, of course, we didn't have any, and Marcelo Mayer has filed for free agency. We thought there was a chance he'd accept the offer, but given that he was looking for 6 years and he had that high financial ambition, felt like he might reject us. So now we hope he gets a 9-figure contract from somebody. We want that supplemental pick that we'll be having in the draft this year when he departs us to be a pretty valuable one. And we'll find out tomorrow what the free agent market actually looks like. And we've made it to the start of free agency, which is where we will finish off this episode. Some pretty interesting players. Justin Martinez, outstanding reliever. Quinn Matthews, good solid starting pitcher. Joely Garcia, who was on our team this past year, did a respectable job for us as a reliever, but certainly wasn't incredible. The veteran Logan Webb, the veteran Garrett Crochet, who has been very good at times in this playthrough, including a Cy Young Award in 2030. Julio Rodriguez, the veteran outfielder. Willis Alvarez, Blake Mitchell, the catcher. Ellie De La Cruz and Samuel Basallo are all headed to free agency, highlighting the major league class. We also have a class of international free agents entering the market. Looks like it is very pitcher heavy. Right fielder Sergio Romo and center fielder Ryuichiro Arakawa are the only position players who are international free agents on the market. Take a quick look at these guys to see if there's anyone particularly interesting. Yukinaga Tamura, 28-year-old, looks like a fifth starter type, not looking for crazy money. Yeah, overall it looks like a very uninspiring international free agent class. So the key free agents are the American ones. As we mentioned, Martinez, Joely Garcia, Garrett Crochet, and Quinn Matthews among the top players who are available. As far as the pitchers, I guess I should give you a pitching view briefly on those guys before moving on in a different direction. Now we will move on to a quick summary for those of you who want to get into more detail of some of the top batters available, and Ellie De La Cruz, Willis Alvarez, and our old buddy Marcelo Mayer, along with Blake Mitchell, some of the more interesting players available. With the way everything ended up working out in arbitration, with the fact that we have let formerly very important pitcher for us, Isaiah Shader, hit free agency, and with the fact that Meyer did decline that qualifying offer that we made to him, we've got about $11 million to spend. But again, keep that in mind that our scouting budget is tentatively $3 million below where it was a year ago, and our player development budget right now is tentatively $12 million below where it was a year ago. So we're certainly going to look to up both of those. I don't think we are going to be very significant players in free agency this year. You can see putting scouting at 16 and player development at 32, which are both down from where they were a year ago, leaves us with barely $3 million in money available. So unlikely to be an incredibly active player in free agency this year. But with the fact that we did decide to bring back Dylan Jordan as our number 3 starter, we did get that extension signed with the left-handed reliever Luke Little. We did exercise the option on third baseman Colt Keith, and we also did make that trade to bring over the center fielder Mr. Pack Jr. Feel like we are not a team that's going to be a lot worse than we were this past season, and who knows, maybe we can even be better, because although we won the World Series last year, there were 4 teams that had more than our 95 wins. So maybe, even though we're going to be losing some pretty important guys like Joely Garcia, Isaiah Shader, Marcelo Mayer, Drew Romo, and others, hopefully we can still keep this team competitive, and we will start moving through free agency, heading towards the Rule 5 draft into our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.